Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with the Dispatchers Roundtable, round number 6. But first, as always, a quick word from our sponsors. InDigital is on a mission to improve the 911 industry. Our goal is to create something better to go above and beyond the current standards. Our passion for creating the most advanced, well-designed solutions led to our position as an industry leader in next-gen core services. The millions of calls processed over our emergency IP networks, to our Text for 911 solution, Texty, to our disaster recovery and backup solution, Mevo, it's easy to see we love what we do. For more information, check us out at www.indigital.net. Ooh-wee. Thank you very much, InDigital. This broadcast is sponsored by them, and we are about to get started. I'm going to hit the music and then bring on my guest here. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable. Oh, yeah. Once again, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable, round number 6. And we are going to get into a deep subject. It's going to be good. This is going to be an excellent conversation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, like I said, this broadcast is sponsored by InDigital. Thank you to the patrons. Thank you to everyone for the support. Today is July 22nd, 2020. This is my 7-year anniversary of being out of dispatch. And a lot of emotions, a lot of things have happened. And as you know, I have a big announcement tomorrow. So make sure to join me again at 3 p.m. Eastern time when I make that announcement. A lot of people have been guessing what it is exactly that is going on. I have been teasing it for about a month now. And I'm still not going to say, I'm not right now, but it's finally going to be revealed. And I cannot wait to let you in on everything that is going on. You've been seeing the hashtags of the end, all good things come to an end, and so much more stuff. So it's going to be something tomorrow. So please make sure to join in. But now for round 6, and I am going to be introducing my guests, bringing them on up screen, or on the screen rather, one at a time. So number 1 is going to be Pam Apoka. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
And before we get everyone else on here, I want to give each one of you a chance, a moment here to just kind of give your background a little bit on public safety or what it is that you do. And we are going to be getting into this conversation about PTSD and public safety, as well as mental health and wellness. There's just so much going on and so much to talk about. We're probably going to have to do another one of these. So Pam, go ahead.
Okay. I've never had another job besides 911. I went straight to 911 right out of high school and worked my way up. And now, after working under the headset for 15 years, I now work at a council of governments who handle 11 counties in 2 states in Missouri and Kansas. And we manage 45 PSAPs with over 700 dispatchers. So I'm the training coordinator for those dispatchers and also the peer support program planner. So that's what I do now. I've been there for almost 10 years.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable. It is a pleasure to have you. We have been talking a lot, actually, the past, few years, really.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. Going back and forth, there's talking about a lot of different things. I think it kind of started out at the conference in Missouri and the Imagine Listening session and all of that, the I Am 911 stories, everything that people were sharing. And we've just been talking ever since then. So it's about time that we're doing an episode, and I am excited to have you on. So my next guest that I'm bringing up is JC. How's it going, man?
Ricardo, good evening, man. And everybody out there, thanks for joining us.
Yes. Now tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I started my public safety career back in 2003 as a new EMT in San Antonio, Texas. working for interfacility transport in the county, Bexar County, Texas, 911, working for a fire department there as well. I did fire and EMS in Billings, Montana, as well as in the Chapel Hill, North Carolina area before finally moving back to Austin, Texas. And a little, I don't know, deviation from my public safety career and moving back to Austin, I actually worked for a pavement engineering firm for 5 years before joining Austin Travis County EMS, where I work now. So everybody out there, if you're interested in a career in pavement engineering, and it's a choice between that and public safety, stick with the public safety. I couldn't handle counting cracks on the side of a highway as a career, so I had to ditch and come back to public safety. But Austin Travis County EMS, I joined in 2011. Mm-hmm. I've been with them ever since, but Austin Travis County EMS was my first emergency communications or dispatch position. And I came in that position, and I've been in it ever since. With them, I'm a commander in the communications division. So within the organization of well over 500 sworn EMTs and paramedics, I have command over one of the MedCom shifts, as well as command over education and training. So that's new cadet training and the continuing education for the communications division, as well as our special events and emergency response team. I'm a peer support team leader. And then along with Pam there, my colleague, she and I co-chair Nina's peer support work group, who's working on something pretty special that we'll be coming out with later this year. I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about that at some point.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on this as well. And from the sounds of things, like, I thought I didn't have any time to sleep or do anything else. It sounds like you do a lot of things as well.
I do a lot of things. Yeah, sleep is one of them. I do sleep, but there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome the both of you. And last,
thank you,
but certainly not least, a new friend, and just, turning into colleague as well. A lot of, talking that we've been doing and going back and forth. He recently put out a trailer for a documentary that is going to be, going in development. There's an Indiegogo campaign for it, and I'm bringing him on. And we've got Mr. Conrad Weaver.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here. Thanks, Ricardo, for having me on the program.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Good to have you here. And if you can please, with the audience, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a filmmaker, primarily documentaries. I do a little bit of corporate work just to help pay the bills. But I've been doing this full time since 2008, and I have a degree in psychology. And so mental health has always been kind of in my background. I worked in a psychiatric hospital for 3.5 years in an adolescent program when I was just fresh out of college. And that kind of helped shape some of my ideas about mental health. But over the last, since 2016, I've been working. I produced a documentary called Heroin's Grip. It's a story about the opioid crisis, and that led me to do ride-alongs with law enforcement and other first responders. And I saw the effects of the opioid crisis in our community, and that led me to producing this documentary about PTSD. And I work on other projects. I worked on some films about agriculture, which took me out to Pam's neck of the woods out in Kansas. Spent a lot of time out there following wheat harvesters. And so that was kind of what launched my documentary work. And so I've produced 3 feature-length documentaries now, 1 short documentary, and now this film, PTSD, will be my 4th feature-length documentary.
Awesome. So, excellent. Yeah. And so we're going to jump into some of what you have encountered. We were talking a little bit in the beginning where you have, had many interviews, a lot of different stories and everything, but I want to play the trailer first. I want to put the trailer out there and then just kind of talk about all of that, and then, segue into, the peer support part and all. So let me pull up the trailer here. And for those who are watching, again, thank you very much for joining all of us. Please make sure to share this broadcast, as well as throw in those reactions. The more reactions and shares that go out there, the more people see that this broadcast is going on. And we want to maximize the exposure for all involved because of the message that's going to be coming out in this conversation. So again, thank you very much for being here. And let me pull this up here really quick. and we will start the trailer.
After working for 20 plus years as a police officer, not having backup is kind of scary. While I was trying to heal from the trauma that had put me in the position that I was in, I suddenly lost all the support of all the guys I worked with.
Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that we don't picture it in our head. I never thought that I would have to deal with that type of call, and I was not prepared.
I remember the moment I was like, okay, I was up all night. It was just trauma after trauma after trauma. You know, the novelty of the job wore off really quick.
They didn't offer any help. They said I needed to see a psychiatrist, that there was probably nothing wrong with me, that I was just being a baby about it.
I couldn't think of how to get help without ruining my job.
I know personally, on many occasions, that a police officer would go in and ask for help, and the chief would fire him.
They forced me to resign because they just could not understand how that could have affected me, since I was just a dispatcher.
I just thought to myself, if I can't do this job, what can I do? Well, what else? I put all the eggs in this basket. Who am I if I'm not a firefighter?
I have 4 years till retirement, and I got to be okay, and I got to make it.
Oof, man, that is not only intense but very well done. I've got to give you some kudos there. The thing that gets me, all of it gets me really, but the thing that gets me is where the girl is saying how could it affect her, because those key words there, that phrase, just a dispatcher, and
Right.
that just gets me.
And I've heard that. We've talked to a number of people in the dispatch world, and that comes out over and over again. That's kind of how dispatchers have been treated. That's, I think, slowly changing, but it's like a big ship. It takes a long time to change, and that's something that we want to help bring out in this film. That these people who are answering 911 when we call, they're not just dispatchers. They're not just a secretary, pushing a pencil and pushing a button and answering your call. They are actually part of the system. They're part of law enforcement. They're part of the fire and EMS services, and they do a critical role. I mean, when I pick up the phone, and I've picked up the phone and called 911 before, I really hope that someone really smart's there and is able to answer my questions and take care of my emergency. And, across this country, there's not a community where where you cannot call 911. I mean, every community has a 911 center in some form or another that answers our emergencies. And if our dispatchers aren't healthy, that's going to lead to other issues down the road. And, we want all of our first responders to be healthy. And my contention is that dispatchers are the first responders. They are really the ones that are on scene first. Even though they're behind a computer screen, they are on scene because they're hearing it in their ear.
Right, exactly. Now, to just to jump in really quick, for those who are watching, if you have any questions at all while we're going through this, I'm watching the comments as they come in. There's about a 20 to 30-second delay, so if we don't answer right away, that's why, because there's a delay in there. But I am reading the comments here, and we can pull questions in as well. Now, Pam and JC, what are your thoughts on just watching that trailer? Pam?
I have seen it with my own eyes with the 911 dispatchers and the comm center, how the accumulated stress just keeps digging and digging and digging. And I think that the stigma right now is changing from suck it up buttercup, as a lot of us know. Now mental health is okay to say that you have a problem and that you need some help.
Yeah, that's great. And Conrad, you can correct me if I got the quote wrong, but looking at some of the tickers coming across, that 38% of first responders had contemplated suicide.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's a lot. And just like Pam said, she's experienced it. I've been on both sides of the headset in the field and experiencing the acute stress reactions that occur when you're in a traumatic situation, as well as the delayed and cumulative stress reactions that happen afterwards. I've experienced the same behind a headset without without having bullets flying over my head, without seeing trauma in front of me, without those things. I can experience it by hearing it because I put myself there in my head and I hear the sounds, but my brain creates the images. And it doesn't matter if I've seen them before, my brain does that for me. And I get to talk to the responders and I get to see the news and I get to see all the attention that's given to something without knowing how little or how big of an impact the dispatcher or my role played in it, right? And that 38%, like we're over a third, we're creeping up on closer to a half, and even just a third. The four of us in this quad here, if all of us were first responders, three of us, or two of us close could have contemplated suicide. And that's a lot. And that hits really deeply, because one of the other things that one of the young women said in the trailer was that nobody came to offer help. They said, go see a psychiatrist. And while that's always an option, that may be what helps, there are so many other levels of assistance that we can give to each other, even untrained, just being good humans to one another, to help make this job that lives behind the scenes and lives behind the curtains, while we're still fighting to bring it to the forefront, with all the work that Ricardo's doing and Conrad, your help as well. There's so much going on to bring them into the forefront. Mm-hmm. But as that's happening, there's so much we can do to help each other deal with all the types of stress that we receive, that we continuously receive, and will always have. And we're doing so much better with that. And like Pam said, killing the stigma of it not being okay to not be okay. It is okay to not be okay, and to raise your hand and say, I'm toast. I need a break. I need help. I need an ear. I don't know what I need. I need someone to help figure out with me what I need. All those things. We're crushing all kinds of walls.
As a civilian, one of the reasons I wanted to make this film was, when I call 911, I really expect someone healthy to answer the phone and to show up to my emergency.
Yeah.
And many times that's not the case.
To have somebody that's so burnt that it has nothing to do with you. Your call's, straightforward, and everyone's being cool, calm, and collected, except for maybe the person that's having that bad day or bad week, year, that just finished a super traumatic call and had zero time to recover mentally, emotionally, to even barely take a breath before that next call rings, and it's yours. And you deserve them at their best. And the only way to get there is for us to build our resiliency up to be able to handle and manage those. And from an industry's perspective, staff it well enough that we can have those opportunities to rebound and recover, so that you can get a cool, competent, collected professional that is going to absolutely manage your emergency in the best way possible.
Right. And that's exactly how we start to break that stigma, is by sharing, these stories, by talking about it, and stuff like this, what we're doing right now with the Dispatchers Roundtable, and letting people know, like you said already, just reiterating, it's okay not to be okay. I was one of those dispatchers as well, who would hold it in. I took it's a call that I talk about a lot, and it's one that has stuck with me. But because I've shared it, I'm able to manage it. And it was a suicide call with two brothers, and one of them was upset about a bad breakup, and they were at the bar, and he just kept saying that he just wanted to kill himself. Well, they end up going home. The brothers are standing outside, and the same thing. I just want to kill myself. So the brother goes in and gets a gun that's loaded and hands it to him and says, if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it. Thinking that he will realize this is a dumb idea, but was far from that. His brother took it and he shot himself in the head. And the call that I took was from the brother who gave the gun to him. That guy's girlfriend, she was the one who called in, and I could hear her boyfriend just screaming in the background, I can't believe he did it, I can't believe he did it. And we're empaths, right? We put ourselves in our caller's shoes so that we can understand what's going on, piece everything together, and get them help the best that we can so that we're able to relate to them, right? Well, at the end of it, my supervisor, Megan, she asked me if I was okay, and I said yes. I said, yeah, I'm okay, I'm fine. I was not fine at all. Because I was still kind of there, I was thinking during the call, what if it was my brother? What if it was us that was going through that? The only thing that helped was when I got out of work finally to call my brother and say, as soon as he picked up the phone, of course he's half awake because it's 5 a.m. And I said to him, I love you. I was like, I love you, man. And of course he thinks I'm messing around, and he goes, shut the hell up. and I'm like, no, I'm for real. I love you. And he goes, what's wrong? And then I told him what happened. And he goes, well, I love you too. But that's the thing, I wish I could go back and tell myself, dude, it's all right. Don't care what anybody else is going to think. You're not weak for asking for help. But then again, we might not be here. I don't know. But that's just one of those things where we have to continue to let people know that it's okay to talk about this stuff and to ask for help.
Yeah, that is okay. And educate them about what not being okay feels like. Because in that moment, you're asked, am I okay? And yes, I perceive that I'm okay. But if I had known what the signs were of that type of stress, had I known what my reactions were, had spent the time, reflecting and being mindful and those types of things, then perhaps that's different also. So yes, we're breaking down the stigma, we're breaking down the walls, but part of this also is education and reaching people and teaching them, hey, when you feel this, or this, that's a stress reaction. That means you encountered it. And you may not up here recognize that you're sort of breaking down a little bit or you lost a little bit of yourself. But to acknowledge that, ooh, I experienced it, means you can come back to that door later and peek through it and check in on yourself and go, am I okay? Did I experience that the way that I wanted to? And then peer pressure, right? Just us talking about this here reaches enough people that if we were 4 of us sitting in a comm center and one of us took a bad call and all of us knew the types of stress that we could encounter and how we all react, and we can read our personalities at a basic level to know when something's a little bit off, if we all go, they'll be fine on their own and leave them alone, then nothing happens. But if peer pressure comes about and we all go, that was tough, even if you say you're okay, just we're all acknowledging that was tough and we're all here for you, we hear you and we see you, then that peer pressure starts to creep in that maybe sharing how hard this was is okay. We don't need that tough guy mentality anymore. We don't need that type A, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to take this over. And I say tough guy, tough gal, it doesn't matter. That mentality doesn't have to be there. And the more we reach and educate and spread this to the more people start to leach out those good feelings and vibes towards each other, and to allow the safe spaces to share those hard feelings that this one hurt, right? This was tough, or I'm having a hard time.
Those are some of the things that we want to share in this film. We want to show some of these stories of dispatchers and other first responders who have been through these difficult times, but then we want to show those case studies of organizations and agencies who are doing it right, who are making a difference, who are taking care of their members, so that someone, sitting down watching this movie, maybe they're a dispatcher, maybe they're a firefighter or a police officer or an EMT, and they're going through it, and maybe their agency isn't doing what it needs to do. This person can say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to raise my hand, because if that guy in that movie can do it and he got help, for his issue, I can do the same thing. And then there might be some leaders in agencies that haven't done what they need to do, that these leaders can step up and say, you know what, we need to make a difference in our members, and to start a peer support program, to start other things, to train our new recruits as they come in. I mean, I think that's really where it needs to start, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Educate them from the first moment in, and provide them with the information about, truthfully, how stressful this job can be in any aspect of first responding, be it dispatch and behind the console or out in the field. Being realistic and honest about the types of things that you encounter, not from a blood and guts, you're going to see horrible things and experience horrible things perspective, but from a deep down emotional, let's let you see from somebody how much it hurts to see this type of situation. And you may not know what type of situation hurts you the most, but let's show you how it affected people. And then loop in this is how you move past it. Here's how you still maintain your resilience. Here's how you maintain your excellence. Here's how you strap that uniform and that headset or that utility belt back on and get back to work and keep doing some of the awesome stuff that happens in this job. Because these, and all of you listening as well, dispatchers, telecommunicators are doing fantastic work every day, but they need those tools from the beginning to know how to move past and get to a spot where they can keep doing that and not lose that momentum and not lose that edge that they have that got them into this to begin with.
Now, Pam, in what you do as the regional 911 training coordinator, as well as peer support program planner, what are some of the things that you've run in, as kind of building on what both Conrad and JC were saying? What are some of the some of the stories, or even some of the signs, or anything that you've dealt with that leads into heading to the healing portion of all of this?
Well, I can tell you one thing, just to kind of go off of what JC was just talking about. When we have a 40-hour basic class for our brand new dispatchers, we always have our peer support team members come in at some point during those modules to talk about exactly what you said. These are some calls that you might have. This is how you might feel. This is our peer support team, and this is why we're here. This is what we do. So they also act as mentors to those brand new dispatchers too. So they always have a buddy system in place, even from the very beginning 40-hour basic. So that's one tool that you could use, and that's one thing that we do. Another thing that we do during our training, our in-person training, when we used to have in-person training, I don't know when that will ever come back, if it does. Right. But when we did have in-person training and we were listening to really hard audio, like on suicidal callers or something like that in class, I know where those are. And again, I would ask some of our peer support members just to be outside in the hallway of the classroom, just in case somebody needs to kind of walk away and have a little break from that. But one thing that we try to do also in all of our PSAPs is ask that the managers, they have like on their CAD, whatever the call types are, certain call types are an automatic referral to peer support. So that way it's also helping take away the stigma where the person is not actually having to ask for help. And like JC said earlier, I'm fine right now, but maybe I'm not going to be later. So they're already hooked up with peer support before they actually need it. So those are some of the tools that we're trying to implement in our Kansas City region.
That's awesome.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, no, yeah, for real. That is excellent. You know,
sometimes I get off track there a little.
No, that was good, you know, because you talk about how, you know, you might be okay now, but it's later on that, you know, it hits you. And, you know, a lot of times for myself, I would take a call and I would think, you know, I rocked that shit. You know, I did it. You know, and my team, well, we did so good. But then driving home, 45 minutes driving home, whether I'm listening to music or something somehow would end up triggering that call. And then I'm really thinking about it. And then I realize, well, shit, maybe there's something wrong. Like maybe it affected me more than I thought. You know, you go from having this high on, you know, the accomplishment, how good everyone did, and then something creeps in a little later that you didn't realize was there. So along with that, you know, we talk about these tools and all. What I want to get into here as well is we all hear peer support and what it is, and what it is not. But for those who are watching, if they don't know exactly, you know, what peer support is, what is peer support? Pam or JC, whichever wants to take this one.
Go ahead.
Pam. Okay. What peer support is, and this is the hardest part about trying to define peer support is there's no textbook dispatch definition for peer support. I mean, you can look it up in the dictionary and it's going to say, you know, similarly staffed colleagues supporting each other. You know what? Okay, that doesn't mean anything, right? In our 911 world, what we're trying to do, and what Pam and I are actually working on now as part of Nina's peer support work group, is defining that so that we're using a common language for one, and that when people use that term, that they're talking about a similar set of functions, right? And so what we hope to accomplish and what we hope to spread is that, you know, in the 911 world, peer support is a formal version of colleagues listening, providing reassurance, providing an ear, a supportive ear. You're not the fixer, not let me hear what your problem is so I can tell you how to make it go away, and a trained ear to be able to hear those red flags of crisis, to hear those red flags of breakdown, of the stress becoming too much to where we can help refer you to somebody that can take care of that, because we're getting closer to the edge of something that's more clinical. So what peer support is in that aspect is, you know, trained colleagues, and colleagues meaning people that do the same thing that you do, right? And that doesn't mean it has to be another dispatcher to dispatcher or call taker to call taker. In the 911 world, everybody is a peer, right? And there's one of the gentlemen that's in our peer group with Pam. His name is Brian Crumpler, or the Crump, if you want to call him that, who is more on the technical side and works at the state level, but has been able to bring from his experience similar types of stress, even though he's never worked a console, never answered a 911 call or dispatched a unit, the same types of stress that we have. And he works in the same environment. So even the people that are in the server rooms, connecting cables and keeping the radios going, even the people that are CAD maintenance technicians, right? They're still part of the industry. So a peer in that aspect, meaning somebody who's familiar with the work, that can relate to what it is that you're saying. Pam, what you want to add?
Just want to add confidential and non-judgmental as well.
Yes, what peer support is, absolutely at its core, is confidential. Informal peer support is what we would give to each other just to meet over coffee or or just talk about a call. But when you start talking about formal peer support and an actual peer support team sponsored by your organization or by something, that type of contact is locked down. That is 100% confidential, meaning that you can tell me whatever it is that you're going to tell me. And so long as it fits within the rules, because there are laws and rules governing what can and can't be confidential, right? As long as it fits within the rules, it's locked down. Be you in a civilian organization that has administrative processes, or a sworn organization that has internal investigations and folks that are dedicated to that, during those investigations, they can't come to peer support and say, hey, Jimmy, what did you say to Sally over this incident? That has to be a, I don't know what you're talking about type of response. It's got to be completely locked down, which gives the peers, it gives the personnel the trust that they can be open and honest about what it is they need to say. And it's not going to turn into gossip. It's not going to turn into, I told Pam and Pam's going to go tell Conrad and Conrad's going to tell Ricardo that I felt like, that I couldn't do my job on this last call. If I tell Pam something, I know that it stays with Pam. And if somebody wants to come check on me, they can't go to her to do it. They have to come straight to me. So confidentiality is definitely a major, and I would say the cornerstone of what peer support is, because you have to have that to have the trust of the people so that they'll come to you.
One thing we found just in the research we're doing for the film, we've talked to all different agencies, talked to fire, police, EMS, and dispatch. And I remember one thing that you brought up, Ricardo, that I think makes why peer support is so important, and what we're learning about peer support, it's in all these agencies and it's so important, is just that trigger mechanism. We talked to a dispatcher from Southern California who dealt with an issue where some of their California Highway Patrolmen were involved in a chase, and there was a fatality. One of the officers was killed, and then the highway was renamed in his honor. And she said, every time I drove up that highway and I saw his sign, his name, it took me back to that day.
Wow.
And so that's one thing that, she couldn't get away from it because it was on her way to work, and so it was just that something that you and I, as civilians, we drive out in the road, we see those signs, we don't think anything of it. But someone was impacted by that. And in that case, it was that dispatcher who was involved in that situation. And I think that's why, these peer support groups are so important, so that when they get to work, hey, I saw this sign today, I'm thinking about this, can you walk me through this today? I think that's where that peer support is so important.
For sure. And, to kind of add to what you just said, I have a similar story where, so a few days after I had launched the I Am 911 movement, I was watching the first season of Stranger Things, and, which is a pretty good show. If no one's watched it, I've only watched the first season, but when I got to the end, I started bawling. Like I lost my shit when this is the first season finale. And there's a scene in there where the sheriff is giving CPR to the little kid, to the main character. Well, the background on this is the very first story that I started the movement with was I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. Hashtag I Am 911. What not a lot of people know is that part of it, the rest of it. And that was it was a teenager who flipped his four-wheeler. I take the call, I'm giving them CPR instructions, and I hear the deputy get on scene, and he runs out there, and I can hear him. They put the phone down, but I didn't hang up because I needed to listen. I wanted to make sure, I was hoping and praying that the little kid was going to be okay. And I hear the officer saying, come on, buddy, or come on, kid. It's one of the two. But in the show, it's the exact same scenario that's playing out. And that that was the trigger, was watching that play out right in front of me, and freaking lost it. And I thought, damn, I didn't think that it would affect me like that. But just like your story, Conrad, that's that trigger that anybody else, would be watching it and not, might not get anything out of it. But for me, because I dealt with something similar, I'm seeing it play out there, and I thought, man.
And so much later too, right?
Yeah.
And on that, I talked to a firefighter recently. He's here in my hometown. He's retired. He's a volunteer firefighter and very active in the fire community during his time. He's, at home now, kind of convalescing at home. But he told me the other month that, every time, and here in our small town in Emmitsburg, it's still mostly volunteer fire station. So the fire siren goes off when there's an emergency. So the whole town knows that there's something going on. He said, when that goes off and my pager goes off, because he still has the scanner and listens to all the calls, and I hear that there's a working fire and there's entrapment, he said, it takes me back 40 years to when I was that lead firefighter going into the house with that same scenario. And I had to look for that mom and that little girl who had died. That takes me back to that so long ago. Just when I hear those tones go off. And, that's something that went unresolved with him because of over the years, he was one who told me that back in the day, it was, kind of suck it up, here's a beer. And that was the therapy, or six. And so having the support, having agencies, having organizations, like peer support and other organizations and other types of programming is so vital to keep our first responders healthy, and so that they can continue responding to calls. And I think, in speaking to my law enforcement friends, we see things happen on the news, maybe because they're not healthy. Maybe there's a bad shooting because that officer was dealing with things, and this was just that trigger point that took him to that place, that dark place. And he responded, or she responded in a way that if they were healthy, they may not otherwise respond. And so having the support of your peers, the officer in my trailer, she has said she doesn't feel the support of her peers. And that's a lonely place to be. And I forget who said it tonight, but he said to be seen and to be heard. When you go to work and you're not seen and you're not heard, and you can't share the deep, dark stuff inside of you, then there's going to be trouble.
Right. Yeah.
It's lonely. And this job's a team. And it doesn't matter if you work a console by yourself, and even if it's a rural, location that you are both call taking and dispatching by yourself, and there's literally no one else there, you're still not by yourself, right? You still have responders in the field. You still have people that are close by. You still have someone that's coming to relieve you, that is in effect your partner, right? And if you work in a larger center with partners beside you, you may be on the call by yourself, but it's your partners in the room who are always there with you, and feel in a cave that you can't be yourself, that you can't express what you want to express because the people around you won't understand or won't take it the right way or perceive you in a different way. That's crushing. That is absolutely crushing. And hopefully what, all this work here is doing is to educate, the people that are experiencing it, but also the people around them to raise your eyebrow and go, am I being a dickhead right now? Right? Am I being the one that's preventing the person over the wall from feeling safe and feeling accepted? Am I the one that's creating the atmosphere that disallows them from speaking up, so that we can all share that and put the peer pressure on that it's okay to express those things and you have a safe space, and I don't have to like you to do that, right? We don't have to be friends. We don't have to share photos of our kids to be able to create a safe space for expression of this absolute dumpster of stress that everybody has. We can still do that in this realm. If we reach enough and get enough people excited about it, and just by sheer numbers, prove that it works. Prove to each other that behaving this way and expressing ourselves and allowing others to do the same, be it informal or formally with something like peer support or therapy or counseling, is positive, and it works, and it creates a better workspace that we can all function better together. And we can take over the world.
There you go. Now, Pam, JC answered this first one, so this one goes to you. What peer support is not?
Okay. It is not a substitute for formal psychiatry. It is not a substitute for formal CISM, which is the debriefing portion. There's two different parts to peer support. The one that we've been discussing is informal and individual level, but then there's the other part where you come together in the organization when you have a bad call or like officer involved shooting or something like that, where there's usually a death involved. And that is a formal way of dealing with the stress when you have everyone who is involved in the scene come together. And that is, it's led by a psychologist. So I also want to make sure that you understand that peer supporters on the individual level are not clinicians, and they do not treat or diagnose. I think that that's an important thing that we make sure that you understand.
Perfect. Now,
it's a good distinction, Pam. I'm sorry, Ricardo,
no, go ahead.
On that, the distinction between CISM and peer support, I think Pam and I and all of our work on this have encountered a lot of instances where organizations or individuals say, yeah, we've got great peer support. This thing happened the other weekend, and we called the team in and we went together and debriefed the whole shift, and the chaplain was there and the psychologist was there. And that can be good. That can work, but that's very reactive to something happening. And what peer support also needs to be, and what peer support is on the front side, is helping to build the resiliency to those in a proactive way by reaching out to the peers, letting them know that we're there day to day, that we're with them all the time, dropping nuggets of education about what types of stress we encounter, how to deal with them, what healthy coping looks like, and to be barometers for each other to notice when somebody's coping seems to be a little off. Am I eating a ton more than I used to? Did I altogether, right? Did I go from 1 beer a night to 6 beers a night? Did I make major life decisions after something traumatic, right? Well, all these little flags that only the people that you work closely with can see necessarily, right? That's peer support, getting to those people before the big event happens. And of course, when a traumatic event does happen, peer support can absolutely be a part of that debriefing, be available and be helpful and be part of it. But peer support
jump in
alone
real quick
is
just to
not
make a
just debriefing. Yeah, Conrad,
make a
what's up?
definition for those who may be watching who aren't in the first responder world. CISM is critical incident stress management.
Right.
So I know there's some people watching that maybe don't know that acronym. So
Thank you, Conrad. That's an excellent point. It's hard for us to remember that sometimes. Thank you.
Now, on
as
top
a
of that,
filmmaker,
though,
I kind of am aware of that. You know.
On top of that, Conrad, this goes back to you then with not only your background, but with all of the interviews that you've been doing. And I don't know if you can put a number on this or anything, but how many times did it come up that there were debriefings or peer support teams or CISM or anything like that in your travels and your interviews for putting together this documentary?
I know the one interview that we did with the dispatcher, she told me that there was a meeting after the incident, but they really focused more on the law enforcement officers who were involved, and the dispatchers were allowed to be in the room, but they were kind of just in the background. They weren't really part of, so there wasn't really it was a debrief, but it wasn't, they weren't really, they were observing more.
That's tough. Allowed to be in the room, but in the background.
Yeah, that's
tough.
It's shameful. It's shameful. And another dispatcher I talked to in Southern California, she kind of said the same thing. And even they begged to be able to go to the funeral for the law enforcement officer. They had to beg to be allowed to be in the church for this officer that was part of their team, as the dispatchers. And finally they relented because they were starting to cause a scene. So they said, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, cause a scene, man. Smoke, bomb it, raise your hands, whatever it is you need to do to get the attention and demand that this is going to happen, and I'm going to be a part of it.
Yeah. But back to your question, Ricardo, there are some agencies that are doing it right. There is one agency that we talked to, Brent Newman in Northern California. He was a commander for the California Highway Patrol, and his area there, they actually had an officer who went through some trauma and went through some therapy, which the department encouraged him to do. And then he realized, hey, you know what? I probably need to step out. I need to retire. And the department threw him a party for his mental health retirement. I mean, that is very, very rare.
Yes.
Usually it's here's the back door, go on out, see ya. And that's the end of it.
We got rid of you before you did something bad, and we don't want anybody to know about it.
And that's the norm. And that's what we've been hearing from all over the country. That's the norm. We're going to get rid of you. Well, like the one interviewer said, he said, if an officer comes in and says, hey, I got some problems, the chief will fire him. Because rather than maybe have an incident that happens, well, we're just going to get rid of you. Well, that's expensive. Right? Because now you got to hire somebody, you got to train them to take that person's place. And so this becomes an expensive cycle. It's cheaper to take care of your members in the long run. It's It's maybe not as politically correct in some places, but it's much less expensive to take care of your members.
And it's scary. It's scary to take care of your people. It's scary to step up and say, we're going to try to tackle this and fix it, because that lingering, well, what if we don't, thing hangs out there. What if we screw this up? What if we, and it's tough to get past that. But what all this is doing is creating enough success stories that it's really, what if is if you don't, right? We know what's going to happen if you don't do those things. And attempting to help may not resolve it. There may be people that don't accept help, that don't respond to it well, and end up in that backdoor situation anyway.
It would make me feel so much better knowing that an officer, a firefighter, an EMT, a dispatcher, they're seeing a counselor, they're getting help while they're working, and they're still working, than them hiding it and working.
Mm-hmm. Or reaching a breaking point. Well, now there's not a choice. Now you are going to go to this for 3 days or a week, and you cannot come back until it's done, to go as maintenance, right? Be preventative, be proactive, right? Instead of
so then what's the value on it? What's the value of peer support? Because it's kind of where we're getting with what the both of you are saying. What is the value there then? Does it end up improving retention? Does this also help with, I saw a comment in there from Gary Bell asking about how this can help with staffing issues, looking at that as well. So for anyone who would like to answer, what is the value of peer support then?
I can tell you what we're seeing is reduced turnover rates, less absenteeism, less medical and personal leave, less resignations, which also results in less recruitment efforts, which again is a cost savings. So those are the kind of data that we're starting to see in the MARC region. So hopefully we can start seeing that nationwide once we roll out our information document that we're working on through NINA to help other agencies nationwide.
By the way, I want to say that NINA has endorsed our film project, and we have former president, the most recent president of NINA, on our advisory board, Monica Million. And
That's
so
great.
We're so excited that NINA is really supporting our film, and and to have Monica on our team is really great.
That's fantastic. And current NINA president Gary Bell showing up in the comments and
So I don't know, Ricardo, I
huge.
don't know if you can see this. I have a watch party going on my Facebook page, and I have a comment here, a question
Mhm.
that I don't know if you saw, but it says, what happens when someone wants to help and voices it, but they are made to think they're weak because they can't handle it?
There you go.
That's a tough situation, and that's an answer that organizational leadership needs to take on, because that's a culture that is being allowed to persist. That people who pipe up and say, I couldn't handle this call or this incident, are trying to reach out and ask for help. And even though the words might say, I couldn't handle this, right? And we all know that first, an emergency response at any level, by any medium, is not for everybody, right? I think we can agree there. But somebody saying, I couldn't handle this one type of incident isn't a condemnation of their ability to do the job. That's them reaching out. That's the way that they know to ask for help. And that should be met with as much reasonable effort to provide them with the resources to manage the incidents that they are going to experience as possible. And if in the end they still reach the conclusion that, they're unable to handle it, then this may not be the career for them. But that should only come after a fruitful attempt to make sure that they have everything that they need.
But what if it's just like a perception that their fellow workers are saying, oh, you're just weak. You may be not able to handle that kind of thing. Maybe we'll put you on something else. If it's coming from the outside or coming from someone else.
No, that's the type of the talk that needs to be squashed and create the new cultures of we can handle this. We are humans. We can support each other and do it. And here's how we do it. Here's how we
a lot of that starts at the top as well. If you have those that are at the top that are already talking that way, because it's a new day, man. we're switching from the old guard and how it used to be, just like you were saying, just suck it up and do what you got to do. But that's just me thinking there. I think it starts at the top, and you keep doing that. I mean,
well, a wise man once said that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Exactly.
And that's absolutely, in this situation, that's absolutely the truth. From what we've experienced and the people that we've talked to, the interviews we've had, it starts at the top. And if the leadership doesn't condone or doesn't espouse a culture of being willing to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm not okay, then the rank and file aren't going to follow that path either.
Yeah, actions reflect leadership.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It so here's of Remember the Titans, because they say that there. It's talking about something else, but it still means the same thing, man.
I just saw a piece of that this past weekend. That movie.
So here's a charge then to everybody that's listening. None of you that are just a dispatcher, which you're not, that are hearing this and wanting and craving that out of your organization, light the fire. It doesn't mean that you have to be the one to rise to the top and do it. You can. You absolutely can. But you can also start the conversations. You can start the fires. You can go to the people who are going to go into those leadership positions and help them understand the worth, help them understand the benefit of creating these types of cultures. And don't let that fire go out. This is one of the hardest things to do in a stress type job like this, is to not only deal with what you're dealing with, but also carry on a side mission. But if you can keep that fire going, light it under yourself or somebody else, and don't let it go out until you get it. It takes time. It can take time, but it can be done.
For sure. And so as we're kind of doing some QA here at the same time, there's a question here that I want to put up, and it's from Elizabeth. I was trying to watch it as it was going up and stay on it, but it says, what would you recommend for small agencies, like where you only have 4 full-time dispatchers?
I'll take that one. We have several small agencies in our Council of Governments, And that's why we have a roving team. And that's also why we have mutual aid agreements with several of the other agencies around us on the Missouri side to make sure that we can help each other. You just have to make friends with the agencies around you, because sometimes you don't want to talk about your intimate, detailed problems with someone in your own agency. So that's why we recommend the roving idea.
Yeah, that's a great response, Pam. For Elizabeth, with only 4, if you were to create a peer support team with just the 4 of you, you might have 1, right? And now everybody has to come talk to that one person, and now everyone knows that one person knows everything. That doesn't really work. And what Pam mentioned is perfect. It's also hard because you have to be the person to go to the other agencies and say, I want to team up with you and 3 or 4 other agencies to get enough people so that you can have a structured team and have formal training and have a team that can respond to all of those agencies when somebody needs to talk. But it sounds like with only 4 that you need to team up with some other agencies and get some numbers behind you.
So as an outsider here, can I throw a question in?
Mhm.
I'm kind of the lone ranger here as far as not being someone involved in this. What can we as citizens do for our community? If we, for our law enforcement, for our firefighters, for our dispatchers, what can we do as citizens to help move the needle in the right direction on this issue?
I think from that, I mean, there's all sorts of things. There's a big gauge. I think at the small kind of like micro level is be a good citizen, right? To be not one of the people that causes the stress that so many of these dispatchers are talking about on message boards and memes about types of callers, et cetera. But also showing support for the system. And that's tough right now, right? Systems everywhere are under a lot of pressure. And I say systems as a whole because we're talking about the judicial system, we're talking about law enforcement, we're talking about emergency response, and just plain government, right? But to find a way to support the essential functions of those that need to continue, that doesn't mean blindly supporting law enforcement or emergency response. It doesn't mean blindly supporting your local councils, but it means getting involved and being educated and helping to bring to light the tough decisions that have to be made on a macro scale, paying attention to what is happening in those councils, the state legislatures, the city council meetings. Many states now are passing legislation that are turning 911 telecommunicators into first responders under the eyes of the state, which is opening them up to other types of support that exists in legislation. For example, many states have legislation that protects critical incident teams or peer support teams for emergency services personnel. So in the state of Texas, for example, the law states police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical services personnel. Where's the word dispatcher, right? As a lawyer who's implementing that law, if that word's left out, then that group, even though you work for a police department, as a civilian employee, you're not sworn, so it doesn't count. So to pay attention to legislation, to call your representatives and encourage them to support bills in front of them that give more support to telecommunicators, that may give more financial support to 911 districts to enhance their technology and their ability to respond to 911 calls. Those are the big things that citizens can do, is inform themselves on what the 911 industry needs and make sure that they're supporting those when they go to the ballot box, when they talk to their elected officials, and actually do those things.
And I know many fire departments around the country are volunteer, and they're raising money. They're trying to raise money. Like our local place, they have bingo nights. They have other things that they're going on, and then just volunteer with that to participate, to help raise money for the local agencies. I think that shows the local agency that, wow, we have a community who likes us. We're much more, even though they're always willing to go out and answer the calls, it makes it more easy. I mean, it makes it, that's not really proper English, but it makes it easier to go out on calls when they know the citizens there that are supportive of the agency because, hey, they were at the bingo night. They were here volunteering to, do whatever volunteers do at a firehouse. But I think that's the way to show that support, and it just, it kind of brings a better community as a whole.
Yeah, and education. And I would say to any citizen that's not already having a connection to the 911 world, or even any that do, is to watch documentaries. Conrad,
Yes.
watch
Yes.
the movie that you're going to put out, to be informed, to inform yourself on what the job entails. What are the things that these people are doing? Watch videos, read articles. Follow the major organizations, NINA, APCO, the two largest in the United States that are advocating for 911 professionals. And go on those websites, follow their social media, get in touch with what these 911 professionals are doing on a day-to-day basis, because that allows you to connect with the job that's being done and the work that's being done, so that they can feel a little bit of it, and then take those feelings to help drive their actions when it's time to call 911, when it's time to be part of an incident, to volunteer their time, their money, or to go to the ballot box or their elected officials and help push forward things that are helpful to the 911 industry.
And I'm just going to jump in and just do a little promo for the film. For anybody who's watching this and you want to learn more, join our Facebook page on PTSD 911 movie. Join the Facebook page and be a part of that community. Every Friday at noon, I have a First Responder Friday. It's a live interview similar to the one you're watching tonight. And this coming Friday at 12 noon, I have Dr. Thomas from Oklahoma. She is amazing. She works with the Oklahoma State Troopers. She is a licensed counselor. She is an amazing teacher. I met her several months ago when we can still travel, and they were doing a training for law enforcement, and she was one of the teachers there. She's going to be amazing. So join our community at PTSD 911 movie, and be a part of that. Make an investment in the film, and when the film comes out late next year, hopefully, if we raise the money, it'll come out late next year. Fill the theater. Go to your local theater, say you got to bring this movie to our theater, and educate the community about first responders in your community, because every community has first responders. Every single community has first responders, and they need our support. And as a citizen, it's my goal to help other citizens to rise up in support of our law enforcement officers, our EMS, our firefighters, our dispatchers, and others who are that first responder community, to give them the support they need, because these people on this screen, they sacrifice time with family. They sacrifice time with their loved ones to take care of our communities. And that means something. That means something to me as a citizen. And I think we as citizens of our communities need to rise up in support of these people. And that's why I'm making this film.
That's awesome. And thank you so much. And Pam, just to kind of go back a little bit, and also building on, the question that Conrad had, in your thoughts, in your opinion, how do you think citizens can help? Because for me, what I'm thinking about is being in dispatch as a supervisor and having that Citizens Academy come in. And that was always fun, because we would get prepared. Of course, we'd be like, put your damn book down. We got people who are coming in, or hurry up and finish eating what you're eating, because we've got people coming in, and they would come in, and sometimes there would be nothing going on, and they would say, "Oh, okay, so there's not much." It's like, this isn't a good perception of how dispatch is. But then there would be other times where it would be going crazy in there, and they would just be in there with their jaws dropped, and you could hear them saying, "I had no idea. I didn't think it was like this. I thought it was like on TV where this and that." You're like, nope, this is the real thing. It's going to hell right now. So have a seat. You're going to see how it's going down. And I think that right there also helps, people realize what's going on. So getting involved in Citizens Academy like that as well. But also, they realize they're asking all these questions for a reason, and we need to have a little bit of patience as well.
Well, I was actually thinking about going younger in my answer, meaning like the cell phone Sally programs at the elementary schools,
Right.
so that we can educate the public on when to call 911, why to call 911, not because your burger is wrong at McDonald's drive-through, which would cut down on some of our dumb calls and stop stressing out our dispatchers because they have calls waiting that are actual emergencies. So there's all kinds of different layers where we can educate the public at each age group. But the Citizens Academy is a great resource too.
Right.
And doing sit-alongs if they pass the background check.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. There's that as well. Now, as we're going into the wrap up of this live broadcast, there is tons that actually we could hit on, and I think we should do another round of this because we are like 10 after the hour here, which is fine. But what I wanted to also kind of get into a little bit, and maybe we can save the rest of it for another round, but the essentials of a peer support program. What are those essentials? Now, you guys were kind of talking about that in the beginning, and just kind of giving the basics, but what else is there? What are some of those essentials of a peer support program?
It's pretty easy, and this is what will come out, the information document that Pam mentioned earlier. What we're working on in our work group that Nina will be publishing later on is a document that any user can take to help develop, implement, and oversee a peer support program. So no matter if you're a 4-person PSAP like Elizabeth was earlier, or a consolidated state level with hundreds of employees, anybody can read this document and have enough information to be able to, like I said, implement, develop, and use a peer support program. So the basics of that, or what a peer support program has to have, what we're talking about in this is very simple. And it's going to sound pretty simple probably here, is it needs to have structure, right? You need to have personnel in defined roles. You need to have operating procedures. You need to have a way to evaluate your program. You need to have ways to reach out to the program. And then the biggest ones, and then this is what Pam and I talked about earlier, is it has to have confidentiality. And that's got to be signed up between all the members. The leader of the peer support organization has to be on board, and every single leader of every organization covered by the peer program has to sign on to say, whenever one of our members goes to a personnel and says, hey, let's talk peer-to-peer, this is a covered conversation, and we explicitly say that this is what's going on, the details of that conversation, unless otherwise required by law, are confidential. You can't get access to it. We're not going to talk about it. Everybody's got to sign on to that. You've got to have training. Informal peer support is what people learn by watching videos and reading books and talking to their colleagues and just being generally good people, right? But formal peer support needs to be formally trained, and that training has to cover certain topics, right? And this is not all inclusive, but crisis communication, suicide awareness, types of stress reactions, right? Coping mechanisms, family issues, work issues, etc. There's a long list of things that we'll be including with that. And those are the basics of a peer program to be able to function, right? And put all those things into words, put it into a policy, and make the person that signs your paychecks sign on the dotted line. Go recruit your members and form a peer team. It's that easy, and you can do it in as little as 4 years.
But wait, there's more. I was waiting for.
Yeah. There's a lot to it. It's going to be a pretty hefty document.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot in there, but it's going to be a package deal that people can take, and it's going to include some tips and tricks of how to bring this proposal to management, right? Because we're not. It's not the audience here that's listening to what are the basics of a peer program. And this isn't a bunch of managers. Hopefully there's a few, but these aren't the decision makers. So we're giving this out to people that can take this to a decision maker and have all the information they need. How much is it going to cost? How much time is it going to take? What are the benefits if we do this? What are the risks if we don't? How to give them a sealed envelope that the manager, the decision maker, has almost no option but to say, yeah, let's do it. No, we want to give them that.
That's awesome. Thank you, all of you, for being on. And also, you know, as I said, going into the wrap up here, I want to get some more information from all three of you for the audience. So starting with Conrad, again, you mentioned it already a little bit, but my good friend Ryan has been putting the link to your Indiegogo campaign and all. But how can people find out more? You know, social media, website, all of that.
Yep. Our website is ptsd911movie.com, and you can get anywhere from there. Also, we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at PTSD911movie for all those accounts. And again, if you like what we're doing in the project, we would love to have your support. And we are looking for, if you can just give $10 toward our Indiegogo campaign. We're trying to raise $35,000 in the next 23 days. I think we have, the last I checked, we had $3,200 in the account, and we need 35,000. And that's just a small portion of the overall budget, but that really gets us going. So if you can help make a difference there, that would be awesome to jump in. We're going to tell the stories of law enforcement, of firefighters, EMS, and dispatch, and the work they're doing, the important work that they are doing in our communities. So thank you for your support, and we really look forward to bringing you this documentary, hopefully late next year.
Awesome. Thank you again very much, Conrad, for being on. And we're definitely going to have to do another episode, even if it's, you know, one-on-one, you and I talking about more stuff on what you had out there. But thank you again. I'm going to drop your screen down here for a moment, and then Pam and JC, everything that you're doing with Nina, with the peer support group, you know, the wellness portal and everything, how can people find out more? And we are definitely going to do another one. I mean, people are saying it already in the comments. We need another round because there are definitely way more. There's a lot that we can cover here, and I'm excited to do it. So, as I said, how can people find out more about also with the both of you are doing, and the wellness portal, any website, social media, anything like that?
I'll start. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's the Nina's Wellness Continuum page. So it's nina.org. If you click on programs, click down on Wellness Continuum, and then there's a See Resources, and it will give you all kinds of resources from a guide for a peer support program to compassion fatigue, how to get a better night's sleep, all kinds of wellness tools that you can use immediately.
Excellent.
Evan, if you want to get involved, if any of the listeners out here are NINA members or part of organizations that they provide membership for all the personnel, go to NINA.org, look into committees. There's all types of ways to get involved there. And I don't want to single just out NINA, APCO as well. The larger membership organizations, go to those pages, put pressure on your leadership to provide membership to those. If you don't have it already, you know, ask your supervisors, ask your managers, put it in your budget line items to include membership in these professional organizations, because these organizations are the ones that are advocating. So just nina.org, APCO International as well, and find the groups, get involved. Pam just rattled off the Wellness Continuum that has all of those resources. And once published, our information document will be there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being on once again. I'm going to drop your screens down here for just a moment. And this has been an excellent episode. I hope that all of you have enjoyed round 6 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. There's so much more that we can cover, and we are going to definitely do it. This is a huge subject, and I want to do as much as possible to be able to, you know, continue to bring light to it, resources, just everything that's going on with the entire topic. Now, as we're getting into ending this here, Today, like I mentioned earlier, is my 7-year anniversary of being out of dispatch. And see, it's 9:21 right now, right? Yeah, 9:21 right now. And by this time, 7 years ago, the person who was going to relieve me, I worked a 1P to 1A shift. I wanted to work with the morning crew in dispatch as well as out on the road, and then my team at the end of it. Someone had called in, and instead of anyone having to get forced in, I went ahead and volunteered. So my last shift in dispatch was a 16-hour shift. I mean, if you're gonna be going out from dispatch, you might as well go out on overtime, right? So I had that 16-hour shift, and it was awesome. It was a good one. I was there with my team members, Whitney and Jill, and we had such an excellent shift at the end. And I had that 16 hours, and then I did my final transmission, and I have it on video. It's not something I'm going to play here at the moment. I'm going to post it here in a little bit, but it was hard for me to leave. It's been 7 years now, and it's also my father's birthday. It was just kind of funny that it ended up being like that, but it was hard for me to leave because I loved the job, still do, and I miss it. But I knew after talking it out with everyone that by leaving, I would still be able to help and support this industry and the community that I love so much, and that's the Thin Gold Line. And that ended there, and I ended up going on to another journey, and things are coming to an end again, and you'll find out tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. You'll find out everything that's going on, and I can't wait to tell you. That's going to be good. So I will see you then. This live broadcast has been sponsored by InDigital, and if you have any comments, questions, send us an email at wttpodcast@gmail.com. And also, really quick, Elizabeth, you had asked the question of where I was dispatching. I started out my dispatch career in Florida, Central Florida, in a small city called Frostproof. Frostproof Police Department is where I started out. But then I finished my dispatching career at Allegan County Central Dispatch in Michigan, the county that I grew up in. Shout out to everybody at Allegan. And have a good night. I will talk to you all tomorrow. And somebody put hashtag cliffhanger. Yes. Yep. Just like JR. Have a good night, everybody.